Namaste everyone. Welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. The ongoing classes offered by Binduji are on Bhagavad Gita with a specific Advaitic lens applied to the transmission of knowledge. We have about 26 classes completed. This is 27th. So in the chat, we have updated the links on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, and
Spotify.
And Spotify. So we have 3 different links provided where all these talks from Binduji's previous classes are made available. And Binduji has put in a lot of effort to get that together. So if you're interested, please save the bookmarks and you can go and visit them. And for housekeeping, we'll close the chat and hand raising when Binduji is conducting the class, after which we'll open up the chat and hand raising for Q&A, question and answers. Thank you, Binduji. Over to you.
Thank you, Prakash. Namaste and welcome to all of you. Let me do my invocation. Om Namo Brahma Dibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsha Rishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashikritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Gita Dhyana Shlokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudramarudaha Stunnandi Divyaistavai Vedai Sangapada Vanishadai Gayanti Yam Samaga Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pasyanti Yam Yogino Yasyandam na Vidussura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Om Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kudachana ma karma phala heturvu ma te sangastva karmani. The 47th sloka is what we did in the last class. Your right is to action only, but never to its fruits. Therefore, let not fruits of action be thy motive, nor let this push you to attachment into inaction, which we discussed in detail. So naturally, when we say that we have to work without attachment towards fruits of action and not to be inactive, therefore also the natural question which can come up from anyone is that यदि कर्म फलम प्रयुक्तेन न कर्तव्यं कर्म कथं तर्हि कर्तव्यमिति उच्यते. If karma phala prayuktena na kartavyam karma, if the fruits of action is denied, does it mean that I should not be doing my duties? Kadam tarhi kartavyam. If at all that, then I have to do that. How should I do it? Uchyate. So Bhagavan Krishna is answering that. Verse number 48. Yogastak kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddho samo bhutva samattum yoga uchyate. Here there is a definition for what is yoga. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Yogastha means established in the yoga, karma yoga, or equipoised with both the, outcomes of the karma. That being is the nature in which we have to approach it. Kuru karmani. Karmani means various duties or various actions. Kuru means perform. How? Sangam tektva. O Dhananjaya, hey Arjuna, you have to do your actions or your duties established in an equipoised mind by Sangam tektva means giving up the attachment towards the action as well as the action, fruits of action. Siddhya asiddhyayoho. Siddhi means victory or success. Asiddhi means failure or losing. So siddhi asiddhyayoho, both victory and failure or success and failure, samo bhutva. Bhutva means being equipoised to. Sama means equipoised. That is the way you can do the karma. That means with an equal approach to success and failure. Because success and failure are fruits of action. But action per se do not indicate whether it is going to give out success or failure. So what happens is that when we are performing action, we may naturally anticipate success. Nobody wants failure. So there is an aversion towards failure and a desire for success. This aversion and desire both are not part of the action nor the fruits of action. But it is an attitude of the mind who is engaging in the action. So, it is only for the person who is engaging in action can do any changes on his side. How he will anticipate a success or would like to avoid a failure. If this is pre-built in the action while doing the action, what happens is that the attachment towards the success and the aversion towards the failure will cloud the intellect from performing the action in the right way or perfectly. Therefore, Krishna defines what is the yoga. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Samatvam means equanimity. Equanimity not only for the fruits of action, in the action also. Yoga uchyate means is defined as yoga. So equanimity is the definition for yoga. So to put in a simple sentence, by being established in yoga, O Dhananjaya, O Arjuna, undertake actions casting off the attachment and remaining equipoised in success or failure. Equanimity is called yoga. Now, Shankaracharya is narrating that yogastha means san kuru karmani kevalam ishwarartham. Tatrapi ishwaraha me tushyatu iti sangam tyaktva he Dhananjaya. Established in yogastha, san kuru karmani, perform actions solely for the sake of Ishvara, kevalam ishwarartham. Tatrapi, even there, O Dhananjaya, having abandoned the attachment such as may Ishvara be pleased with me by my actions. Now this needs a bit of analysis. Let us think about it. When we undertake our actions, where do we have the sake, or where do we have our stake in the activity? It is to our ego. It is for the satisfaction of the ego or the individuality. Actions, when we undertake, we look for success because the ego needs a boosting. So to boost the ego, we seek after success in the result of actions. And the actions are performed keeping that in mind. So what happens? The ego is involved. The actions get colluded or, clouded by our thoughts for the egoistic tendencies. And the result, which is not in the hands of the doer, will be now faced with either success or failure. And when success or failure happens, the ego can be boosted or get hurt. And our reactions will happen because of that. So the whole scenario, when we look into our actions, we are having no control on anything out of that. Because right from the beginning, ego is in control of the entire, picture. So Acharya Shankaraji is saying that kevalam ishwarartham, shifting the egoistic tendencies in the action by making it as a devotion to God. Here also there is a problem. If you see the God as external to you, then you may have an attitude, Ishvaraha me tushyatu. May Ishvara be pleased with my actions. That attitude will come. That is what is Shankara is saying here, tyaktva. That should also be avoided. At the same time, it has to be dedicated to Lord, such a Lord who is not external to you. And only in that case, when you do the surrender or when you do the dedication of your actions to the self in us or the Ishvara within us or the divinity within us. Yesterday, I think Jesse was asking this. So that divinity, what is there in us, is not different from us. So that is what, when Shankaracharya says that yogastha san kuru karmani kevalam ishwarartham, tatrapi, there also, Ishvara me tushyatu, may Ishvara be happy with my work. Iti sangam tyaktva he Dhananjaya. Phalatrishna shunyena kriyamane karmani sattva shuddhija jnana prapti lakshana siddhihi tat viparyaya ja asiddhihi. So siddha asiddhayoho is there in the shloka. That is now being explained by Shankaracharya. Phala trishna shunyena kriyamanani karmani. Kriyamane karmani. When actions performed without a craving for its fruit, phala trishna shunyena, then arises siddhi. And how does it is characterized by sattva shuddhijat jnana prapti, characterized by the attainment of knowledge born out of purity of sattva. And the opposite of that, impure orientation, gives rise to failure. Tad viparyaja asiddhihi. So, samo bhutva, treating whether siddhi or asiddhi comes, or success comes or failure comes, we are not differentiating either of them. So tayoho siddhi asiddhayoho api samaha tulyaha bhutva kuru karmani. Even there, with the regard to the pair of success and failure being equal or impartial, we have to perform our actions. What is that yoga called, or being established, which is said to perform action? We are performing action with a equal attitude or impartial attitude towards the success and failure. Therefore, the definition of yoga has to be seen as the equanimity with the respect to success and failure. So, samatvam for what? Equanimity towards what? Siddhya asiddhayoho. Samatvam yoga uchyate. So, the equanimity towards all pairs of opposite which comes as a part of our action. That equanimity can be achieved only when we do that actions not egocentric or prompted by our ego to do the action, but surrendering every action to the self within or the divinity within. Even an external divinity, which is the normal habit of ours in the devotional, going to temple, church, or etc. Our actions, whether we are lighting a lamp in front of the Lord or lighting a candle in front of in a church, all there we have some prayer in our mind. Bless us, give me this, give me that. There is always a demand. The demand is the indication that we are not equipoised. That demand shows that we are driven by our individualistic or egoistic needs to be met by the Lord who is external to us. That will not suffice or will not make us the yoga perfect. The yoga which Krishna is talking about is samatvam yoga uchyate. The equanimity in what? Success and failure. So the success and failure can be equanimous only when it is not egocentric driven. It has to be for a higher goal or higher pedestal. When we do such actions or all our actions in that manner, then only we are moving towards yoga. Otherwise it is sambhoga, swayam bhoga. We are satisfying our ego. Ishwarartham, without the ego. Shankara makes a definite, decisive clarification. Actions is to be done for the purpose of the divine within oneself. Yet, even a devotional self-reference must be dropped. It should not be that the individual is separate and the divine is separate. That must be dropped. Hence, the striking instruction is that abandon even the thought that Ishvara may be pleased with my action. That also has to be dropped. Because if you have that attitude, let Ishvara be happy with my actions, the I in us, the ego in us, still preserves the egoship or the doership. It still installs a subtle claimant in action, even if it is to the Lord, as long as it is treated as external to you. So thus Karma Yoga must be Ishvara centered, where such an Ishvara is the divinity within. And it has to be absolutely ego free. You cannot even have an iota of ego that I have a action or a duty to be done. Even that should not happen. It should be, even if it is a duty, it is my duty. That attitude should not be. It should be that it is the duty prescribed to me by Lord within me to use me as an instrument in performing that. Krishna going to tell this to Arjuna later. Nimitta matram bhava sarvya sahajin. So, you be only an instrument. Don't be the doer. The duties are to be taken that way. That it is the divine intervention for me to perform the duty as an instruction from Lord. It is not my desire that I should do the duty. It is not my duty anymore. The success and failure, siddhi and asiddhi, does not mean the worldly success and failure. The siddhi, what Shankaracharya is indicating, is toward the purity of sattva, which will give rise to the self-knowledge within us. The self-knowledge within us can rise only when we have the divinity as our divinity within me or divinity in me. Otherwise, it is a divinity outside. So, siddhi is the purity of sattva which gives rise to that self-knowledge, then about this knowledge about the self. Therefore, asiddhi becomes the impurity, not sattva. It is not going to help the rise of self-knowledge, but it will boost the ego and all activities will be egocentric and driven by the ego. So success should be seen as an inner qualification, whereas failure is an inner obstruction towards knowledge. Even spiritual success, if it happens, must be treated at par, even when the knowledge comes. That is the very important aspect which Shankaracharya is indicating in these words. It's radical in his approach. He says that attachment to worldly results will bind us. Not only that, even attachment to spiritual progress also can bind us. Be careful about it. I am doing this yajna, or I am doing this jnana yajna, or I am doing the, classes on Gita, Upanishad, etc., or I am teaching so many people Gita, Upanishad, etc., any sort of ego boosting aspect, whether it is spiritual or even in the worldly thing which we don't need any example, we are plenty aware of it. Even if one thinks that I am becoming pure now by the sadhana, by my meditation, I am advancing. All these things has got a taint of ego. The ego has merely changed the costume from worldly success and failures to spiritual success and failures. Therefore, Shankaracharya comments that be equal even towards both purity and impurity of all sorts of outcomes, whether it is worldly or spiritual. Therefore, the definition of yoga has to be now redefined as it is not a posture, it is not a samadhi or a concentration technique, it is not a ritual discipline or a dedication to the Lord also. But siddhya siddhayoho samattu. Equality with respect to even spiritual success and failures. Therefore, yoga is a psychological non-appropriation. It's not a selfish one. So how does this define in the Karma Yoga? Karma Yoga is the means by which the erosion of the ego happens slowly. And when the erosion of the ego takes place, the merit accumulation, which the ego is badly wanting, that will not happen. Over a period, ego will find that I am not getting pampered, I am not getting what I want. The ego will become slim and vanish. That is the time when the Karma Yoga is really starting. Till then, you are proceeding through Karma Yoga for Shithilikarana or the erosion of ego. Karma Yoga is not about earning merits in the spiritual path. Karma Yoga is not earning in the worldly life also. Even praising God by becoming an achiever in doing, so many things which people are doing. You might have seen, have you been to a regular goer to the temple, church or mosque or anywhere, you would have seen that people boast that I did so many things. I did this for the temple. I did that for the thing. I did Shayana Pratishnam or, all type of claims as an achiever. They think that by doing that they are becoming more and more spiritual. Shankaracharya says no. If it doesn't erode your ego, then it is of no good. So Karma Yoga is about dissolving the sense of I-ness or the I am the doer, even if it is spiritual. And when this erosion is complete, that is when the Shuddha Sattva, a transparent purity of that intellect, helps us to dawn the knowledge by itself. The knowledge is not external. The knowledge is in our own Swarupa. But that Swarupa knowledge is not shining because of the ego. Therefore, the mind where the ego is located assumes the role of the individual. The true individual is Jnanamaya Purushaha. He is a person or he is that individual who has Andar Jyoti. Is a light of knowledge. But that light can shine only when the cloud is removed. The cloud of the ego. When this is removed, light doesn't need to be acted upon. It shines by itself. And that is what is called the knowledge dawns by itself when it is said. So, yoga is not doing sacred action. It is refusing to appropriate any outcome, even if it is spiritual ones. Where nothing is claimed, there knowledge shines unobstructed. The 49th verse. Yat punaha samatva buddhi yuktam ishvara aradhanartam kamoktam etasmat karmanaha durena hyavaram karma buddhi yoga dhananjayaha buddhau sharanam annicha kripana phalahedavaha. Durena means discarding it at a far off place, at a long distance. Durena hi avaram. He means certainly or indeed. Avaram, abominable. Okay. Karma is all sorts of activities. Buddhi yogad, on the strength of the intellect. Dhananjaya, O Dhananjaya, Buddhau Sharanam Anyucha. Sharanam Anyucha means trying for. Sharanam, full surrender. In such an intellect, Buddhau means the seventh case. In such an intellect, surrendering oneself, then only you are proceeding towards the erosion of ego. Otherwise, kripanaha palahedavaha. Kripana, the word kripana is very derogatory word. Miser is the somewhat close to equivalent in English. Palahedavaha, those who are desiring for the fruits of action. So those who are desiring for fruits of action are miserly people. Naturally. A miserly person always is in demand, looking wherever he can satisfy his requirement. Such a person is called a miser. A miser can never be satisfied. He can never be satiated. Because he is always looking for something. So those who are desiring for fruits of action are called miser in that sense. So far lower than the yoga of wisdom, action, O Arjuna, take refuge in the wisdom. Wretched are the ones, those who motive are for the fruits of action. This highlighting the wisdom or intellectual thing is there in the mind of Arjuna when he opens the third chapter. Because he is saying that Krishna, you have told me about karma yoga and you are also telling me to buddhi yoga, Dhananjaya. Buddhau sharanam anyucha. So you are confusing me. Tame nischayam bruhi. You tell definitely which is good for me is the beginning verse of third chapter. So when I go there and I am talking about that verse, this verse should be reminded to all of us that at the end of the karma yoga part of the word, Krishna is telling Arjuna to buddhau sharanam anyucha. So Shankaracharya says, Durena ati viprakarshena atyandam evahi avaram adhamam nikrishtam karmaphala arthinaha kriyamanam buddhi yoga samatva buddhi yuktad karmanaha janma marana adi hedutvad. Durena, far. Action performed for the sake of fruits of action is far inferior. Atyandam avaram, far inferior, abominable. Adhamam, extremely low. Nikrishtam means very base in nature. Karmaphala, artinaha kriyamanam. When compared with the action performed with the yoga of intelligence. Buddhi yoga, samatva buddhi yuktat karmanaha. That means equanimous in understanding. So, the yoga of intelligence can happen only when the intelligence is able to equate the fruits of action with the same coin. That is what is called equanimous in understanding. Because result-oriented actions are the causes for birth and death, etc. Basically, our samsara. All our mundane problems are basically from result-oriented actions which we are undertaking for the satisfaction of the ego. Therefore, when the ego is not satisfied, we have all the problems, thinking the problems are mine, because actions are mine, the results are mine, the problems are also mine. Krishna is giving us a beautiful way out. Surrendering everything to the divine within yourselves. Buddhim sharanam anyucha. He Dhananjaya. Yat evam tada yoga vishayayam buddhau tad paripakat jayam va sankhya buddhau sharanam ashrayam abhaya pratikaranam anyucha prartayasva paramartha jnana sharana bhava ityartaha. Therefore, Dhananjaya, since this is so, seek refuge, seek shelter in that which is the cause of fearlessness. Sankhya buddhi, sharanam ashrayam, abhaya pratikaranam, anyucha. Abhayam means fearlessness. In that intelligence pertaining to yoga, or in other words, it is called Sankhya intelligence. Sankhya Buddha means, Sankhya means knowledge. Jnana yoga, Jnana buddhi. That arises as its culmination. in order to say that to be the one who takes refuge in the knowledge of the supreme reality. Paramartha jnana sharana bhava ityartha. Yataha avaram karma kurvanaha kripanaha deenaha phalahedavaha phalatrishna prayuktaha santaha Yova etat aksharam gargi avidititva asmad lokat praiti sa kripanaha. Brihadaranya Upanishad. Iti Shrute. So, what Krishna has said is actually what Yajnavalkya has told Gargi in the 4th chapter of Brihadaranya. Now in the 3rd chapter, 3, 8, 10. Yata avaram karma kurvanaha kripanaha. For those who are perform the inferior action are wretched or kripana or miserly, pitiable, being driven by the desire for the results, acting as causes for results. They are not only desiring results, they are also acting as causes for the fruits of action. As the Shruti says, he is quoting the Shruti here of Brihadaranya Upanishad. One who departs from this world without knowing that imperishable reality, the absolute Atma. O Gargi, he is a Kripana. He is a miser. He is living miserly. He is dying as a miser. He may have all the Putreshana, Vitteshana, Lavakeshana. All of them may be there and he would have accumulated all of them. Enough wealth, land, property, name, fame, everything. But if he doesn't know which is the imperishable reality, the absolute truth, because when he leaves the body, all the accumulation, all the whole things which he has accumulated here, including name, fame and everything, he has to abandon it here. And he goes as a miser for rebirth, because his actions have been egocentric and he has to take the fruits of action again. That is why the cycle of birth and death continues to such a person. And therefore he remains as a miser, life after life, because he has not taken the effort to know the eternal reality. Satyajnanam anandam Brahma, Ayam Atma Brahma. Therefore, the fruit of action motivated is called far inferior. Avara means inferior. Adhama, low. Nikrishta means base. Why such brevity? Because fruit motivated action reproduces agency. Because you have to have agency if you want fruit of action as your motivation. Without agency, that motivation won't be there. And because of the agency, it necessitates results. The agency alone is not enough. The agency is prompting for result in the action. That results in the rebirth. It necessitates birth, rebirth, necessitate birth and rebirth, etc. Thus the inferiority is ontological. It's not moral. Because it keeps the samsara in perpetual continuity. On the contrast, action with samatva buddhi or yoga buddhi, does not install the agency or the claimant in the action or the result. Therefore, the actions are not binding any causality. When your actions are for the sake of the actions, it is self-consuming, like a wick burning itself, and thereby the fire is put out when the wick itself is burnt. The wick, when it is burning, doesn't have an intent or an ownership of the action that I should light up the surrounding, and it is that if I don't light up enough the surrounding, I know I am not doing my job. The wick doesn't think that way. It consumes itself when it is burning for the process of lightening the surrounding. That way, our actions also is self-consuming when we do not have the agency and the intent for the fruits of action. Buddhi Yoga, Sankhya Buddhi. It is an ordered way of progression, and both of them are not opposed to each other. The Yoga Vishaya Buddhi, or the equanimous intelligence in Karma Yoga, develops Chitta Shuddhi, and that is what is called the Sankhya Buddhi. And there, the knowledge will arise as we proceed further and further into it. And therefore, yoga is the means and Sankhya is the culmination. Yoga is the means and jnana is the culmination. Both shelters us from fear, because fear arises only where there is birth and death, etc. and samsara is onslaught on us. So when you don't have the agency for the action, you are not becoming a cause for the action. It is self-consuming and self-destructing. Therefore, there is no continuity of birth and death. By doing this continuously, you are developing a Sankhya Buddhi or a Chitta Shuddhi. And when it ripens, the knowledge removes the expectations entirely. That knowledge in each action, each Karma Yoga, is bringing us maturity, so that in the next action, with this knowledge, we are better equipped and we'll be less attracted towards the fruits of action and less attracted toward the doership. And in this way, we are taking refuge in the knowledge itself, step by step. That is not a ritualistic refuge which we are otherwise familiar with, nor is this a devotional, sentimental action, but it's an epistemic security which we are building in ourselves to guard us ourselves from the fear, onslaught of fear. To know the reality in this way, is to make us unassailable by the samsara of birth and death and the consequences of worldly onslaught on us. Therefore, the Paramartha Jnana is the only refuge where we are free from all fears. Then the word kripana. A kripana is not poor in possession. Please understand. I told you, he may have all the wealth in this thing. He may have all the citations around the world and all happiness which materialistically he can achieve. But he misses the imperishable self, which is his true nature. Because all the actions earlier which we mentioned, the wealth, the citation and the happiness, etc., is related to the body and therefore it is perishable. The imperishable reality, he has no idea about it. Such a person is miserly because he trades finite results for the infinite. No, the infinite, he trades the infinite for the finite results. So, karma jnana, the completion of the karma is from the jnana. Therefore, the fruit of karma, fruit-seeking karma is leading us to the bondage. Equanimity in karma is purifying in nature. So, karma has both the binding nature as well as purifying nature. It purifies the buddhi, sankhya buddhi, where knowledge of the fearlessness and the freedom shines by itself. So those who are not in this direction, they may be materialistically wealthy, but spiritually they are miser. Then samatva buddhi yuktaha san swadharmam anutishtan yat phalam prapnodi tat shrunu. So samatva buddhi yuktaha, the one who is now equiposed with that approach of karma yoga and the buddhi yoga, sankhya buddhi. Swadharma manushtitan anutishtan, swadharmam anutishtan, established in his own duties. Yat phalam prapnodi, what is his achievement? Tat shrunu, hear that. Krishna is saying in the 50th verse. Buddhi yukto jahadiha ubau sukrita dushkrute tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karmasu kaushalam. Now one more definition of yoga. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. In the previous verse, he said that samatvam yoga uchyate, is equanimity is called the yoga. Here he is saying yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga is dexterity or is an art or skillfulness in action. Buddhi yuktaha, one who is engaged in the karma yoga. Jahati means abandons. Iha, here, in this life. Ubhe means both. Sukrita dushkritav. Sukritam means good actions and the results. Dushkrita means bad actions and its results. Both he abandons here itself. Here means here and now. Tasmat yogaya yujyasva. Yujyasva means engage. Be engaged. Tasmat means therefore be engaged. Yogaya, for the sake of yoga, karma yoga. And yoga is, karma yoga is karmasu kaushalam, skillfulness in action or dexterity in action. Possessed of wisdom, one rejects here both virtue and vice. Therefore, devote, O Arjuna, yourself to the karma yoga, because yoga is skillful in action. This verse, I will explain the Shankara's commentary in the next class. I'll be repeating this words, shloka again. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyawad.
Thank you very much, Bindoji. I've opened the chat and the hand raising because I'm sure there's going to be a few questions about how to resolve karma.
Binduji, I have one question. You were talking about the Sankhya Buddhi. So what's the difference between Buddhi and Sankhya Buddhi?
Buddhi is basically our intellect. Sankhya Buddhi is that intellect which is endowed with knowledge of Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka, etc. That reality, what is the correct knowledge which we have to apply in our actions. Because intellect everyone has got. But how many of us are applying that intellect which will take us toward the realization of our true nature? That is what is called the Sankhya Buddhi.
Got it. Thank you, Binduji.
Thank you, Atul. Namaste, Venkat.
Suji, this is a very nice session that takes away the difference between yoga and gnana in a way. That defining yoga itself is a samatvam, that divide of ahankara, and that chitta shuddhi prapti also is not given the center here. So in a way, there's no difference between yoga and gnana, right, Bindoji?
Yoga is a means and jnana is a culmination. But there is no clear-cut distinction between the two. One progresses towards the other. So as the yoga progress towards the knowledge, every action when you do without the ego, you are moving towards the knowledge. So the knowledge becomes more, the action becomes, the doership becomes less. Then the knowledge becomes more, the lesser the doership. Ultimately a state will come when you don't have any doership, because you are fully identifying with the Atma, which is akarta bhokta.
Yeah, I think this is nicely laid out. This is good, Brother Jay, the way you put it now. That Buddhau Sharanam Anvicha, that Buddhau, because Sharanu means for that knowledge within itself is a Sharanu, right? Within, there is nothing outside.
Yeah. See,
Okay.
that is why Buddhau Sharanam Anvicha, because other than with the intellect, there is no other way a knowledge can arise. No action can give rise to knowledge by itself, because actions are with the doership. So the doership has to get reduced. For that, in the action, there should be the buddhi in such a way that the doership is negated by the equanimity. Neither I am the doer nor I am going to be the enjoyer of the fruits of action. So this is the way in which it will mature into an individual. That is why it is called karmasu kaushalam. In the action, if you have that skillfulness to deploy egoless action and not, pampering the ego with the expectation of the fruits of action, then it is a skillful way in which you have to do the actions. The question came, how can, without motivation, how can somebody work, etc. Here Krishna is giving an answer for it. You can still work. The motivation should not be for the fruits of action. That is why when it is understood properly that the skillfulness with which we engage ourselves in the action, reducing the doership, thereby the ego doesn't have much control on that. And the fruits of action which will pamper the ego, we are not accepting it. Because whether the success comes or failure, we are going to treat it equally. Therefore, the karma becomes a self-annihilating one. The karma doesn't produce, it is not a causal karma again to give rise to next activity or next birth, etc. So it is self-consuming action when you do it with buddhi yoga. So therefore, Sharanamanyaccha, in the Buddhau Sharanamanyaccha. That is why you have to take refuge in that intellect, which is now becoming endowed with knowledge more and more.
I think that Samatva Buddhi explains a lot, Madhuji. That, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami, it is not external, it is within.
Yes.
There is that is a beautiful, change here. That Krupana also, completely swaying you away from, calling a Krupana is the best way to sort of chase you away from looking for outcome. Okay, that's a good one.
Right.
Okay. Then I had another follow-up. The Samatva Buddhi, that Samatva Buddhi Yuktaha San Swadharma Manutishtan. The Swadharma is going to be described more somewhere, or?
Yes.
Okay.
It will come very, very elaborate discussion is going to come later on Swadharma.
Okay, then we'll wait then, Vinuji.
Yeah.
This is fine, Vinuji. Then the Gargi Akshara means that Akshara, that the Yova Etadaksharam, Gargo Viditva, that Aksharam is also elaborated somewhere.
Yeah, Aksharam is actually, it is coming in the subsequent parts of the Gita itself. But the word Aksharam is mostly used in the Bhargadaranya Upanishads, where Aksharam means imperishable. That's all.
We'll take it that way. We will wait for this then.
Yeah. Right. We studied that in the Mundaka Upanishad also, no?
Yeah.
Yaya Aksharam Adhigamyate. Dvaividya Veditavya. Paracha Parachaiva. Para Yaya Aksharam Adhigamyate.
Sure, Vinduji. The right. Krishna has his own way of telling this.
Oh, yes. That is very simplified way. much simpler than the Upanishads.
Yes, because the yoga navigation is profound already.
Right.
That is why just follow the guru, then we'll settle everything else on the way, Binduji. Yes, Binduji.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venkat. Namaste, Srini.
Namaste, Vindaji. Just one quick thing I wanted to check is, this week feels like most of the concepts from last week are repeating. Is it my misunderstanding or is the flow going like that? Because like we Avasayatmika Buddhi we discussed last week. This week it comes as Sankhya Buddhi and even some Ishvara Anugraha. So is it like a different, slightly different methodology through which the same concept is again reiterated or something different, Vindaji?
No, this time he's taking more towards the karma aspect of it, how the karma and the jnana has to, will affect our approach towards the karma. The jnana can fructify only when we have the right approach towards the karma. In the previous week, what was this thing is the approach towards the nature in which the intellect has to be applied, deployed for our, understanding properly. There, Vyavasaya Atmika means we're resolute intellect. Unless there is a resolution or the determination in the mind, he cannot even come towards the Karma Yoga. So that was that last week. In that, the stress was more on the, determination of the mind. Here, he is telling that the approach of the action is in such a way that your Buddhi Yoga or Sankhya Buddhi becomes more and more Chitta Shuddhi towards that type of a thing. That is slightly different.
Yeah. It's like last week's thing put into a little bit action or practice kind of
Right.
thing,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Binderji, everyone.
Namaste.
Namaste. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I got a question about that rebirth. If the karma, and I want to see if I understand it correctly. If the wrong attitude, if the ego is involved in the karma, then the experience itself, the situation itself, the cause and effect will repeat itself, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you have to die and then take another body. It is the repetition of the experience of that till the right attitude burns it up, right?
Right. It is rebirth here doesn't mean that the body has to be cast away and another body has to be taken. What it indicates is that everything, so even your waking up for a second waker in the next day, which we call it as the next day, is out of an action from this thing. So thereby, having achieved the state of no mind, we get back to the mind state again. That is what is, you can say, in a way, a rebirth. Maybe we are having the feeling that it is the same body, but the body has undergone changes. So it is not going to talk in that when the physicality of the body is not what is the importance here. Every experience is a rebirth, or every action and the continuity of the action from one action to another action. When you don't have a doership, for whom is that actions? So the moment you think that you have an action means you are taking an experience again. Unless and until you could reach a state where you are beyond the actions. That is when you become totally about doership and enjoyership.
Beautiful. So, because life itself is showing you, the experiences in life itself is showing you. When something keeps on returning into your life and refuses to go away, then something is not right.
Right,
So,
absolutely.
yes. Okay, cool.
Thank you, Karan. Namaste, Moro.
Namaste, namaste. I'm in a bus right now, so I'll probably speak later.
Pardon? Did you have any question?
No, I'm just here to listen. I did have one question, but I guess I'll ask later if that's okay.
No, because since you are the last one who have come on this thing for questioning, it's your turn. Otherwise, we'll be winding up the room.
Okay, in that case, I guess I'll come up next time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Prakash, we can stop, I think.
Okay, Binduji. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming, for attending this session. And for those who came up onto the stage to ask questions, another thank you. Special thank you to Binduji for holding this space, which has become a deep space of learning for many of us. And we continue tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. IST. If you want to catch the replay, it's in Clubhouse, or you can go into the chat and use any one of the links, either on YouTube, Spotify, or on Apple Podcast. Have a nice day. Thank you very much, Binduji. Over to you.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Atul, Venkat, Srini, Karin, Moro. And we'll continue our verse 50 onwards tomorrow, same time. Hari Om. Good night.